Hello and welcome to an Into the Breach tier list. I am joined by Gabriel, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Gabriel. I am primarily Monster Train player, but also have been doing some Into the Breach, and really excited to get invited by Voix to do this tier list.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I invited Cranberry and Dusk, and they both said, "Why are you inviting me? I don't play this game." To which I said, "All right, fine." But yeah, we're gonna do the squads for this video, and like I've said, I want to do one at like the halfway point. I don't know if I'm technically halfway done with Unfair, but at the halfway point, and then one when we're finished up, and probably at some point we'll do the pilots and all of that stuff as well. But squads are easy and fun, I think.
Yeah, yeah, they make the most sense, I think, to do an initial tier list because they're wildly different in difficulty, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about them in the context of unfair only. So if you think that anything is a little off, it may be just the difficulty because some of these squads get a lot worse on unfair, like Zenith Guard. Oh, but if you want to check out Gabriel, you can see in the description. I'll have a link down there to all of his channels, YouTube, and then I'll get you to give me your links after after we're done recording. Actually, you can just post them
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, I'll just Discord you.
So the way that I've done all these tier list ideas in the past is I go one, you go one. So I can start with Riftwalkers if that sounds good to you.
Sure, that sounds good
All
to me.
right. So so far, my feeling about Riftwalkers is that I'm going to put them very firmly in the B tier. They are like the world's okayest team, I think.
Yeah, yeah, they don't seem to really excel at anything, but they're also the nice thing is like I feel like B or C is just the default floor for any squad on
Hmm.
Unfair that has three mechs that already from the get-go have the ability to push stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You go
oh
ahead.
yeah, go. Oh yeah, it's just like the brute. I never found the brute to be that good. I feel like
Hmm.
that's like the weak point of the squad, but definitely the artillery's pretty good, and the prime can get pretty good. I don't think it necessarily starts amazing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
My feeling. So first of all, I guess no, I don't think I'm gonna talk out what each of the mechs do. And I guess it's not that hard. The default squad is a melee attack push that does 2, a ranged attack with push that does 1, and then the artillery which does 1 and pushes adjacent tiles. In my mind, when I evaluate squads at this point in this game, I want to look at a squad that has it so that, because on Unfair there's about 5 to 6 enemies on the board, and you usually need to influence about 3 to 4 attacks. I would say like 3.5 attacks per turn is what you want. And so I value teams that are able to have each mech influence at least 1 attack per turn baseline, and then sometimes has the ability to influence 2 or 3. And this team is like the floor for that, where you can push enemies out of the way with the prime and with the brute with their push attacks, and then sometimes the artillery can like kill an enemy and push an enemy or push two. And so I think that they are like the good baseline default, and they get a little worse in unfair.
Yeah, definitely. The prime loses kind of a little bit of its value just because it doesn't have the ability to kill
Mm-hmm.
like it normally does. So
Yep.
it almost comes down to the brute, or it kind of gets lowered down to the brute in terms of usefulness. I feel it's probably still more useful though because you can do the dash attack and then
Yeah.
maybe block an attack after or something like that.
Yep. Absolutely. The other thing, I guess, too, is I don't remember if this is correct for this team. Some of the upgrades I don't fully remember, but I think that the prime mech with the punch, when you give it 3 reactor cores, it goes to 4 damage, which then starts like killing alphas in one hit, which becomes really strong.
True. Yeah.
So like first island, I guess like first island, this team is shaky, but will probably get out of it, and then second island, if you get enough cores, it becomes quite a bit better.
Right.
Okay.
That's another good point is like the first island I feel influences a lot of these things,
Yeah.
and Riftwalkers doesn't feel miserable like a lot of these other squads can on unfair.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is worth it to kind of like differentiate early, mid, late. I think the Riftwalkers are
Right.
like fine early and then have the potential to be really good on like 2 and 3 and then hit a bit of a wall on 4 if you miss. But
Right.
it also it gets a little uncertain because it's harder to evaluate how good this team is on Island 4 because every team can look exactly the same on Island 4 where you've taken all their weapons away and switched them out for better things.
Right, exactly.
So
And I guess, on that similar note, I guess it also is nice that they're a squad that isn't like desperate for a secondary.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it's like I lean toward wanting to put them in C, but all these points just I feel it can't be any lower than B. Like
Yeah.
there's just definitely squads that are a lot worse than this.
Yeah, there are a few nightmares, I would say. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have any like specific enemy interactions that I think are worth mentioning for this team either. Like I want to keep it in the mind, but no. And like pilot interactions, there's a lot that goes into a run of this game. But I think that on average, if you're starting a run with Rift Walkers on unfair, you're probably it's up to you more or less. You got to pick your island right. You got to pick your turns right. But there's a lot of dynamic gameplay with them with the pushes.
Right.
All right, I got nothing else. You want to move on to Rusting Hulks?
Yeah, let's do Rusting Hulks.
Go ahead.
This is a very tough one for me to evaluate because I feel like their overall power level is actually pretty similar to the Rift Walkers, like if I holistically look at the squad, but they're just a very unbalanced squad in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They got one of the better mechs in the game with the artillery. But they also, I think their science mech is just atrociously bad. And the brute, I guess, is where the real contention comes. It's like, is the brute actually good or not? I think it is, but it just is so awkward a lot of the time. I lean toward B or C with Rusting Hulks, I think.
Okay. I think I'm gonna give them A, but it's a very shaky A. I think that the strength of this team is very dependent on how fast you get your first time pod, because giving the +1 range to the brute to the jet is really, really good.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, once you get that extra range, it's so much better. I think I could definitely get on board with A. That was my initial thought, was like A, but then I was just trying to think of all the tough spots. That there's like a lot of spots where the brute just can't do anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And also it's like the brute is a 2 HP mech that's in the front line, so
Right.
that does also get to be a little difficult. I had an idea. I will change this. What I'm going to do for the rest of this video, I think, and I'll do this when we finish talking about Rusting Hulks, I'm actually going to pause and then open the game and just show the mechs on the start screen while we're talking about where we put them on the tier list, I think.
Nice. Yeah.
But we can finish up with Rusting Hulks here.
Sure.
I think that this team is A, but also I think that my feeling is skewed a little bit because I've played a lot of Kai Miller in the artillery mech, which starts one-shotting a lot of things very quickly.
That's a good point, though. I mean, if there is a starting pilot, because it's like, I think you add that to the rank, right? Because
yeah.
Well, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's definitely some pilots that break a lot of these squads.
Yes, there are. I think it is worth mentioning when there is a good pilot squad combination. Like, nothing really jumps out about Rift Walkers.
Yeah.
But in Rusting Hulks, I think that you can do really well with Kai in the artillery early on, because then with the push, that becomes 4 damage, which is really strong.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, when you factor in Kai into the artillery, it's like you get an incredibly good early game, but then also it never really falls off, right? You can get that artillery to a point where, even getting like the back smoke and whatever, you could do like a 3-for-1 with it on some turns, and it's just wild.
Oof, that is nuts. Yeah. And Like the evaluation, once you get the reactor core into the jet, it becomes like each of your mechs, not always, but sometimes will be able to influence too, right? Because sometimes you get a nice like
Right.
double push, sometimes you get a nice double smoke, and sometimes you get like smoke a fire, or not a firefly, a mosquito that flew behind you and then shoot an enemy. And
Right.
suddenly it becomes plausible to stop 6 attacks in a turn with this team.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And in general, I think just the ability to put down smoke got stronger in
Yeah.
unfair.
Yeah. Because I didn't play, I wasn't like super into the game before, so I don't remember which enemies got added with unfair or with the advanced edition, but mosquitoes in particular can become a pretty good ally of this team, I find, where they're like laying down smoke and damaging enemies for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
It's like having another mech on your team.
yeah, almost. Yeah, I think that generally rusting hulks are pretty good, but that first reactor core really pushes the envelope.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I am going to pause here and set up I'm going to reset my screen region, but I don't want to throw away that first little bit.
Sure.
We're back to recording. So what I'll be doing for this now is I have the tier list over the game, and then when we start to a new squad, I will put them on the tier list and then hide the tier list. So to do the catch up, and then while we're talking, I'll just mouse over them so that people can see without having to interrupt our actual discussion. And so, where were we? We were on Rusting Hulks, which it's actually called the Jet Mech.
Oh.
And I didn't know that. I thought it was, I guess I just have always called it the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, I rarely refer them to any of these as their actual name.
Yeah.
I
started calling the ice mech that shoots in front and back of itself the Janus mech, because that's the name of the cannon.
Oh,
Such
I
a
didn't
good
even know.
name.
Yeah,
All right.
Janus.
Okay.
It'll grow up to be Megas.
All right. Where's my tier list? All right. So that's Rusting Hulks. Now I will take Zenith Guard. I think that Zenith Guard is the worst team in the game. That's a strong F from me. I think that I have gained a little bit of respect for this team, but yeah, I think that this team is atrocious from me. You can go ahead. I put them in F.
Yeah, I mean I can't disagree with that. I had suspected this would be your lowest. I think they're definitely one of the worst. And they may be the worst. I have a different one that you'll probably predict that will be
Yeah,
that I think is worse than it. But to me, they're the second worst for me. Actually, I'll be honest, they're the third worst for me. And I know there's one. I think we actually agree on another one here, but it's gonna make some people mad because I know a lot of people love this other one that I hate. But I think Zenith Guard definitely sucks. It got a lot worse. It was never great anyway, but it got a lot worse in the unfair difficulty. The laser mech in particular just struggles. I think the saving grace on this squad for me is I think I like the science mech more than most people like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the shield is pretty good. You can often essentially 2-for-1 with it in terms of just dealing with threats on the map. But I think the fact that it flies, the pole can be pretty useful it really just depends on the map. But and I guess the problem with this squad is they don't really have any huge standout mechs. Like, if there were a standout, to me it would be the science mech. The brute is just kind of decent, but it needs, in my opinion, a pilot like Abe or somebody like that. So you kind of already can't use something like a Kai. I mean, I guess you could put it on the laser mech, but then your charge mech severely suffers as a result. So there's like a pilot issue with them, and also just, I don't know, on unfair, the laser mech is so hard to actually find value out of that you're so desperate to find like a secondary weapon on it.
Yeah. So to your point, I guess. First of all, I was gonna start dunking on the defense mech, but while you were talking about it, I was looking and I realized this is the defense mech, which is their science mech, has a like 4-move flying baseline, which is really strong.
Right.
And so, like, the problem I have with the shield is that it's only 2 uses, of course. And I guess actually the problem I have with the shield is that I feel like you need +1 use and +3 area, which is 4 cores for not a ton of value. But
Right.
I can kind of come around on the defense mech. I think you just throw away the attraction pulse, which is the pull, as fast as possible. But it's like, it's okay because it can often influence an enemy, but as long as they don't stack up a little bit. I found a little bit of success with this team putting Kai in the laser mech and then just pulling the pilot from the charge mech and killing it every combat.
Oh, interesting.
Because ultimately the problem with the charge mech is that it does 1 damage to itself. And what this means is if you in a combat that's 5 turns, if it goes attack, 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 it loses to attack because it dies on the 3rd attack. So what ends up happening is you have to go like attack, attack, heal, attack, heal. But when if you pull the pilot out, you get to go attack, attack, heal, attack, attack, which ends up making it do 4 attacks instead of 5, or 4 attacks instead of 3, which is a little bit better to me.
Right.
To your point though, Abe does make this a lot better. Mafan also makes this a lot better, but it feels like like the mech doesn't really do enough to me to warrant a pilot. Whereas, because like when I think about it, the laser mech is awful.
Yeah.
It does 3 damage and then 2 and then 1, and it blows up your own buildings with no building immune.
Yep, and it's only a straight line.
Yep.
It doesn't push or pull anything.
Yeah.
Its movement sucks. And God, they're horrible. I mean, I honestly, they probably are the worst, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's 3 for me that are tied. For
yeah, no, I mean, it's fair. I think that you got to put them bottom 3 at least for sure.
Yeah.
However,
if anybody tries to tell me that this squad is good, I know they're gaslighting me.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, I think that so when we think about this team in terms of power level, what ends up happening is they have a really, really bad, like really volatile first island, and that's where it struggles, because when you miss perfect island first island, your run is significantly worse.
Oh yeah, you're basically, you hardly get anything.
Yeah, you end up like, because you're missing a bonus objective too, so you're down like reputation probably, and you're down like a full weapon, which is it's a lot to lose.
Your grid's probably damaged severely.
Yeah, so I find myself taking like 5 or even 6 damage on an island with this team, and then using the perfect island to just heal the grid sometimes even. But yeah, my feeling is that you have to put a boost on the laser mech and then just kind of sack the charge mech and pray that you get a good starter.
Right.
That's how I play them anyway. But I still think that on average they're very bad, and then once you escape the early game, you hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, they are very reliant on getting probably 2 secondaries like as soon as possible. So you're at the will of RNG.
Yeah, you are. And this is, I mean, we haven't really done any, we're not going to do much weapon discussion in this video, but this is not a game where every weapon is good in all circumstances, so you can miss in this game.
Absolutely.
All right, if you are good, you can take Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg, this is an interesting one. I feel like they're probably better than I'm giving them credit for, but I really liked this one on hard mode, and it's probably one of the ones that fell the most for me on unfair. Just a lot of the squads that have a lot of their usefulness based in flat damage versus positional movement are just things that are just really tough for me, especially on Island 1 to work with. I mean, they're definitely better than Zenith, but I don't know, they feel like C or D tier to me.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So I'm actually struggling. I had a really, really fun and really cool run with this team recently, but I think that they're probably D tier. As we talk about the others, I will maybe move them around a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that, like you said it perfectly. Teams that focus on killing enemies versus teams that focus on moving enemies really struggle. The lightning mech does 2 damage baseline in a chain without building chain. This does nothing on first island.
Right.
Until you get building chain, it becomes like very difficult to play with. And I don't know. I'm a hook mech hater. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, the hook mech, it's like it's kind of similar to Zenith. It's like if you want it to be useful, you basically have, in my opinion, you have to make it the flying mech, which already needs a reactor anyway, or the flying pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even then it's, I don't know, like because you really want, on this one you really want Kai on the whip mech, so it's like it's almost not even worth considering other pilots almost. The entire squad is built around this chain prime actually getting a ton of value, and to get an entire extra damage out of your pilot, pretty hard to pass that up. And
yeah,
I will say the artillery, I think, is a pretty good unit. It has some positional movement. It does pretty okay damage, although that's a little less relevant and unfair. And then the rock can sometimes do some neat things. But yeah, I gotta agree with you. That hook mech, I seem to have hated it less in hard, but all of my runs on unfair, the hook mech has just struggled to do anything useful to me.
Yeah, because
One of the worst mechs in the game.
The problem that the hook mech faces is that, like you said, it kind of needs flying because there's so many enemies on unfair, and for the hook mech to do something, it needs to be like at least 1 space away from an enemy. So 3 movement and like a wall of enemies makes it a lot harder for the hook mech to actually play the game, I feel.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, the team is built around the lightning mech, and I think that you basically have to put Kai. You could maybe get away with Morgan, but I don't know why you would.
Right, yeah, because I feel like the Prime doesn't really have to take damage.
Yeah.
There's definitely some squads where Morgan makes sense, but I mean, Morgan would be fine if you didn't have Kai, but I feel like Kai is just the default, usually.
Yeah. What else? Oh, I think that the other big problem I have with this team is you really need 4 reactor cores. You have to fully upgrade the electric whip as fast as you can.
Right.
Playing this team without building chain is atrocious.
Oh yeah, it's undoable.
Yeah, it is horrific. But the boulder mech is very strong. Like you said, the rock is good, the push is good, the ability to just like create a rock is cool.
Yeah.
I think this team has a bit of a focus on stopping enemy spawns too, which we didn't really mention yet. Because you can put the boulder on the spawn, the hook mech can just go stand on the spawns. So
True. And that's very useful on unfair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being able to control the amount of enemies on the screen.
Yeah, stopping spawns is like being able to control it and stop 5 enemies from spawning at once is very good and very useful. I guess the other things I wanted to mention that are worth talking about is I think that the hook mech does well with Henry as well. If you see him, he's like honorable mention to Henry. I also think that this team does well with what's her name? I have the game right in front of me. The pilot that can move, Chen, the one that can move one for free.
Chen, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. I think that she can do pretty well in this team because you get the ability to like pull an enemy on the hook mech and then step out of the way of the lightning chain.
Right. And maybe even block another spawn point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The hook mech does get armor, which is also worth mentioning. The last major thing that I think hurt this team on unfair that's easy to forget is they put tumblebugs in the game.
God.
Yeah. Like
worst enemy ever.
Yeah, oh my god. And In the run that I played most recently, I saved because I was doing a 4 island. I saved the island with tumblebugs for last, and that meant that tumblebug leaders started spawning on the island.
Oh god.
It
Oh
is a
god.
horror.
That boss. I don't think I've ever perfected that boss yet on Unfair. I'm ashamed to admit it. I don't think I have.
He's a menace.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of an aside, but the biggest piece of information I have about tumblebugs is that if you displace a tumblebug from its attack on a rock, it will never redeclare an attack on that rock.
That might make it a little better.
Yeah, I
Although,
ended up what I ended up doing on one of them is like he put a rock and then I just pushed him off of it and he kind of got walled off from the rest of the island. But yeah, like the lightning mech really suffers from tumblebugs, but they do get a bit of a benefit in fighting other enemies that spawn things like spiders and blobbers, which is nice.
right, right. Yeah, and there's the new spider boss that they're pretty good against.
Yeah. Oh god, I hate spiders. I think that's my least favorite enemy in this game.
Yeah, yeah. They're pretty bad.
They are. Ooh. But
We need to do a enemy tier list on how
yeah,
how awful they are.
dude, I am absolutely down to tier list everything in this game. I love putting things in lists.
Same.
But yeah, I think that this team they're very fun. Like without a doubt, one of my favorite teams. But I don't think they're very good.
Right.
All right, let me pull the list back up, and we are on Steel Judoka.
Ooh.
So I hated Steel Judoka initially. I thought this team was absolutely horrible when I first played this game. I have come around, especially recently. I understand that it's actually me who was wrong. I think the Steel Judoka is pretty good. I'm willing to give them. This is another one that'll probably move around a little bit as we talk about the end of the list, but I'm gonna give them a solid B.
Yeah, I think B. I could even argue A. Very similar. I think this is a pretty common when you start into the breach. You first unlock Judoka, and you're like, God, these guys suck. Because like when you start out, damage is like a good thing, right? And this squad
Yeah.
just doesn't have damage. But then like as before Unfair existed, hard was the hardest. But as you basically get to whatever the hardest difficulty is at the time that you start to kind of see how important positional manipulation is. And also just playing around with pilots to provide some extra usefulness. Like I think I've seen you do this as well. I really like to put Herald on the science mech at the start.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just so the gravity is kind of hit or miss sometimes. It can be very good, the gravity hit, but to give it that extra ability to push from melee range really helps the squad. Also, I think flying mech on the prime is pretty good. It makes it really easy to just toss into the water a lot of the time.
Oh yeah. True.
Yeah, but I really like this squad. Hard to argue S, I think, but B or A sounds about right. They're probably the squad that potentially loses the least / even gains stuff from hard to unfair.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that when I flip back, I will probably move them to A, but that A is conditional on either Herald or Kazakh in the gravity mech.
Oh right, Kazakh as well.
Yeah. I think that the ability so out of the box, if you put a pilot with push into the gravity mech, it has 2 ways to influence situations that are different, but will almost always net you at least one enemy being stopped of their attack for no reactor cores and for no real work, which is really strong. Absolutely.
Right. Especially with how awful pre-first time pod islands can be.
Yeah, absolutely. This is also a team. I feel like I have to give a mention to any weapon that has area damage and the effect buildings immune. Thank God,
yeah.
cluster artillery gets buildings immune.
Definitely, and it's funny. It might just be variance, but I found that the artillery, I rarely even need the building immune. Even like it doesn't run into the problems I feel like a lot of these. We haven't got to some of these squads yet, but it just to me, it's pretty non-awkward, even without building immune, to have the artillery get you a 2-for-1. Obviously, it matters a lot on map generation, though.
Yeah, the big thing about it is, to your point, if you have, you can kind of flip around, right? You can look at the map and then look, like, because you can preview where you're gonna go, and you can go, oh, well, I'm not gonna need building immune in this one. There's like 2 buildings out, like, isolated that are gonna get attacked primarily, and then you can just switch that reactor core to like +1 move on the siege mech or something like that, and it becomes good. So
Exactly.
that's definitely a worthwhile point. You can look ahead and see as well, but yeah, I mean, also 2 mechs that start with 4 movement is very strong. Judo mech, gravity mech have good mobility.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think
The
that this team is good.
judo also has armor, I believe.
Yes, it does. So you get to be pretty open with what you take, but I think that this is definitely a team that doesn't pass like kill multiple enemies objectives very well, and doesn't use or like kill enemies very well. But that's fine in unfair. You just have to pick your objectives smartly.
Right. And you know, I've found I never really used the passive upgrade much on hard mode, but I've actually found it to be pretty good on unfair.
Yeah.
It just happens to push the breakpoints on these alphas. Usually just one, I usually don't do the full upgrade, just one is fine, but just that extra damage usually will... I guess it depends. A lot of them are 5 health, 3 damage, so the double upgrade, to have 2 extra damage just kind of gets you on that breakpoint.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think it also is another one where it depends a lot based on what enemy you're fighting if you do this. Like, hornets and mosquitoes don't tend to do friendly fire all that much, but then like scorpions and especially fireflies do a lot of shooting each other. Or nautilus shells, what are they called? The gastropods. And
right.
Yeah, I think that I tend to get rid of the Vec hormones, which is the passive for +1 damage, but I think it's good early. It's like it's not bad, and it's also free. So
right.
But yeah, no, I like this team. I've come around. I thought they were awful initially, but I think that's like the little fade is bad opinion of the video game.
Yep, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them an up to A. Ooh, I'm good if you are good.
Yeah.
All right, you get flame behemoths.
The good thing is I think you and I are probably in agreement on this squad.
I imagine.
The bad thing is I don't think the rest of the world is.
Really?
I don't know. So, people seem to love this squad.
No way.
It's like you got all the #1 biggest fans out there, but I just don't get it. Like I think particularly the Prime is pretty bad. I'll admit the Science is a top 5 mech in the game, but like the artillery's okay. I lean toward like D tier. I mean, it's a lot better than Zenith still, and at least they have technically 3 mechs that have positional manipulation, and the Science is arguably the best positional manipulator in the game. I don't know. If I wanted to be really charitable, I could probably give him a C tier, but I don't know. Personally, I just don't have good experiences with this squad. It's like D or E tier for me.
Yeah.
Or no, not D or... I wouldn't say F, but like maybe D or C. I don't know.
I was pretty close to slamming them in F tier, but I guess I will, upon further consideration, give them a little bit more credit. I don't like this team very much.
Yeah.
I think the problem, and like the difference between unfair and hard or even normal, is that fire is bad. Fire is not very good.
Right.
And so, like, when we talk about it, right, it's very hard for me to put Rift Walkers in A tier, or sorry, B tier, and then really shit on Flame Behemoths, because when you get right down to it, the Prime Mech is doing the same thing as the Prime Mech in Rift Walkers. It's pushing an enemy, and sometimes it's doing damage. The artillery is doing the same thing, and pushing the enemies and doing fire. And then the swap mech is better, or maybe not better. It's close, but
Yeah, that's the way you laid it out there is actually really interesting because it's like on paper they should be really good, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like damage wise, the fire should kind of catch up to the amount of damage a Riftwalker's really doing, and then the science mech. I guess it's sort of competing with the brute of Riftwalkers, and it's leagues ahead of that in usefulness. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like you said, it's like fire takes so long to actually kill anything on unfair that it just I don't know. They basically, to me, what they are is they have an alright artillery. They have that science. The prime is just desperate for a secondary, though. I feel straight line push is all you're getting out of it. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, and then I think about it, right? And it's like, well, that's all that the Prime and Riftwalkers does. And when you think about the damage, it's like, it's 2 damage over time, right? Because it takes 1 turn for the fire to catch up to the damage that the Prime mech does. So why is this squad so bad?
I know, and even, I mean, there is still some use for the fire too, in terms of like forcing the enemy to go other places. I will say though, I don't know if it's just the DLC, but I've seen enemies not follow that rule. They seem to go right into the fire anyway. I don't know.
I think that if they're on fire, they'll go into it. But yeah, I don't know anything beyond that. It seems like they try to avoid fire, but sometimes the enemies just make unbelievable plays to me. So
right.
Yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know. The swap mech is good, but it does need reactor cores. I guess maybe you know what? I'm gonna give this team a tentative C now that I've talked it out a little bit. I guess the problem is that I think the problem that I have is that the artillery mech has like no good upgrades. Backburn is atrocious.
Oh, yeah, I've never spent cores on that. I refuse to.
Yeah, no, like there's no way. And I also think that the +2 damage isn't that good. It's like fine, but
honestly, I basically never upgrade the artillery.
Yeah.
It's like science mech gets all the cores because it becomes super useful the more range you have on it, and then I just try to get a secondary for the prime, and the artillery just kind of does okay things defaultly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this team has to be better than I think it is, but like on pay, maybe I'll just play another run of this and go, why don't I like this? But
I think you laid it out really well. It's like it should be better probably than our experiences are, but it's hard for me to give it much more than a C because my runs have been pretty miserable with them.
Yeah, and like I guess maybe that's just interpretation, because we did say Riftwalkers is probably B or C, and this is probably actually B or C, but for some reason. I guess one of the things that I want to say against this team is that you can't go, like talking about First Island, you can't go to a First Island with a Flame Immunity Scion. You'll just get crushed.
Right.
Which is brutal, but that shouldn't be enough to make me hate this.
Right. And even something like regen can be tough.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Counteracts it. Yeah.
Yeah, regen does completely stop the fire damage too.
Right. And then it's hard to kill the scions with this squad.
Yeah, because if you set a scion on fire, it takes them 2 turns to die. But like
exactly,
where like if you hit an enemy with 2 HP with fire, like if you hit them with a flamethrower and push them off of the attack, they're dead. They die on the next turn, and it's even better because they don't get their replacement spawn declared for like 3 turns, which is nice.
Right.
But yeah, but then you get like a scion in there, and it becomes really bad. I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna give them C, but I'm torn. This is a team that I'll be interested to see how I feel after I finish all of the clears.
Yeah, it's a team that I felt would be like Steel Judoka to me. Like I felt like it would just climb my ranks. Because I hear people talk really well about this squad, but yeah, it's tough to sign on off it if I'm just not seeing the results myself.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
C is good, I think.
Yeah, I think that I should like this team more, but...
Right.
Alright. Frozen Titans. Okay, this is me. I of the teams in this game, I feel like I have the least experience with Frozen Titans. Like, I just don't feel like I've played this team very much. My interpretation is that they are probably like B or A. I feel like they're better than Riftwalkers, but they're probably not as good to me as like Rusting Hulks are. Because okay, so the A would be predicated on specifically playing Mafan in the Ice Mech or Bethany, I guess, if you don't have Mafan. But
Right.
yeah, I'm gonna go B.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting because, like, I feel like without Mafan or Bethany, I could agree on like B. Um, but to me, I think with those pilots, this has my vote for best squad.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, it just, like, the way I feel about them is their brute sucks. The brute definitely
Yeah.
sucks. But I think the frozen artillery with a shield pilot is just like cheating in my opinion. It you just delete one unit from the map and you don't even have to block an additional mech because it still counts as a vec on the map. So
Mhm.
it's like you basically, like, you might take a grid here and there and you might lose some objectives, but like this to me is a squad. Like, I should try it. I did it on hard. I haven't tried this challenge on unfair, but I've done it where I just purposely don't even spend any reactors,
Oh yeah.
and it was beatable on hard doing that. Um, it probably is still, I think, on unfair because the thing is the prime's pretty good too, in my opinion. Like the prime, it basically unless it's like a what do you call them, the moth vex or one of the ones that kind of push forward and back. Like
Oh
usually you
yeah.
simply just are guaranteed to deal with one mech with it,
Hmm.
which is fine. The shield upgrades, whatever, I usually get it if I don't have anything better to spend on. But I think the thing with the thing that really makes them the best squad to me though is the brokenness of the artillery unit with the shield pilots.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess my problem with this team is it feels like you don't have anything to spend cores on, because like this team
Yeah,
doesn't kill enemies, so putting
right,
damage on the brute doesn't matter.
right.
The
Yeah, the
the
brute is. I just want to get a different weapon because that
yeah.
weapon is horrible. That weapon
Yeah.
is the worst. Freaking that brute might have my vote for worst mech in the game, other than some of the new. There's one in the new squad, but
Hmm.
we'll probably get to that one later.
Yeah. My problem, I get the actual problem with the brute mech is that it gets so much worse when you put a shield on the artillery. Like it actually
Right.
just because like the point is you're supposed to freeze yourself and then shoot it out with the
And
mirror shot, but
right,
like yeah, you
right,
don't need to anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'll probably move this team to A honestly because yeah, Ice Mech is really good. It's very versatile because you can freeze buildings or enemies.
right,
The game does get a little weird with enemies being frozen and counting towards spawns. I've never seen this with the ice mech like the artillery itself, but if you've ever played the game with the unbelievably broken weapon, the ice generator, which freezes all tiles around it.
yep.
Yeah, so if you freeze the entire map, you can have 6 enemies frozen and the game will declare I think up to 2 more spawns, up to 8 if everything's frozen.
Ah, interesting.
But that's not really a problem you're going to face with the artillery in this team.
Right, because it's usually just one for one.
Yeah, and this team does go. It's like you're gonna get chipped out early, like on the first 1 or 2 turns. Like you said, you're gonna get hit because this team only really ever goes 1 for 1. Sometimes the brute gets to stop 2 attacks, but this is one for
Right,
one. You'll take 1 or 2 damage here or there, and then on the later turns, everything's frozen and just dies. So
right.
yeah, no, I think this team is very good. But like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with them. I'll give them an A. I'm
Sounds
not
reasonable.
not quite ready to give them S because I think that I'm probably only gonna put one team in S tier because it's we'll talk about it. It's Hazardous Mechs, baby. Let's go.
Oh
If you
God.
don't mind. Go ahead.
I Now this is similar to the flame behemoths. I don't know. Like, I hate this squad. I hate them. It's like this squad is good, the hazardous mechs, but here's my thoughts with them. They are the most punished by errors. And it's so easy to make them. Like, you just lose pilots so easily. You have, you have two pilots that basically damage themselves, so you can't, like, put Abe on both of them. So you're always, and the elite mech in particular, I just don't like. This mech, I don't know. So many people like hazardous mechs, and I know people are gonna hate on this, but I honestly, to me, this is down there with Zenith for me.
Ooh.
I want to give it like a D or F.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I was look.
Yes.
It takes a lot of takes a lot for me to not just slam this in F tier. This is hands down my least favorite team in the game. I hate this team.
Yeah.
But if you ask me what's the worst mech in the game, I'm picking Elite Mech 10 times out of 10. Fuck that piece of shit. I'm putting him in D tier.
He's horrible.
He like, all you have to do is give that guy building immune and he becomes like a top mech. But no.
And it's so funny because like the targeting pattern is the same as the steel judoka's artillery, but as you said, much more than the steel judoka even, I find myself wanting building immune so much on that mech. Like, I think I don't know, it just seems like every time I want to do a move, there's a frickin' building in the way with this thing. And there's nothing I can do about it. I just can't put a good turn together with elite mech.
Yeah, and the difference, of course, is that you can shoot a building and not blow it up with the Steel Judoka's siege mech, where you can't jump onto a building, right?
Right. That's a good point too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately the standout mech for this team is definitely the acid projector shooter. This thing's pretty good.
Right.
Flying, 4 movement. Put acid on enemies, solid. The push, I find that more than any other team, this team has a problem to me of I just always end up pushing enemies into my buildings. It seems unstoppable almost, but
right.
I guess actually the real problem that I face with this team is that when there's 6 enemies on the screen, what you end up having to do is you have to go, okay, well, to kill this enemy with 4 HP, because what this team does is kill enemies, right? The whole point is you kill enemies to stay alive.
Right. It's a damage-based squad, basically.
Yeah. They have the push, but the push ends up often being more of a hindrance, I am finding. But what you end up seeing is these positions where it's like, okay, well, to not have my pilot in the unstable mech, like the brute mech that's shooting 2 damage, to have this guy not die, I have to put acid on the enemy he's shooting, but that's 2 of my units giving up their turn to stop 1 attack, which just is rough.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what you want to be doing on unfair mode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like often there's no choice. It's like, all right, I have to. I mean, they're great at killing bosses, I'll give them that, but at what cost, you know? At the cost of your entire grid being destroyed.
Yeah, I'll try to come around on this team, absolutely, but I find that, because like what the flow feels like it should be is on the early turns you're aciding up enemies to stop their attack and then using the other 2 to just kind of push enemies away, and then you heal from the enemies that got acided up. But what I find happening is the elite mech jumps in, blows up a building, and then I get mad.
And you're always like living right on the edge of your health, so normally you, even with all the alphas in unfair, you know, a health upgrade here or there can allow you to get a chump block in with every other squad in the game, but with this squad you don't get that.
Yeah,
like you often have to make like, I guess it's the only squad where I don't mind seeing a pilot get the invulnerable upgrade on.
Yeah,
because then so often I have to make the decision just to lose a mech and try to fight out another turn with this squad, because there's just no other choice. It's like, am I gonna lose my robotics facility? I'd rather lose a pilot at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I want to give like pilot combinations. Not a lot of the pilots seem like they work super well. I guess Morgan maybe, but Kai is very bad with this team, of course.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The honorable mention pilot I want to say, which I don't know if many people have talked about before, I think Rosie does pretty well in this team. and you may not even think of her all that often. She's the after move repair adjacent mechs pilot.
Oh.
So like you can end up sacrificing your unstable mech and then have your science mech just go revive them on the turn after that. Which I think is like it's a nice niche interaction, but I don't know if it's like what are you giving up? You're giving up Abe in the unstable mech basically for that.
Right.
Or Mafan. But
it's worth playing around with. I'll admit I never tried that, so maybe that could make the squad less awful to me.
Yeah, maybe. I like to also it's kind of boring if we try to make these tier lists happy for everyone. Like, oh well, I can see the benefit. Fuck hazardous mechs. I'm taking a strong opinion in the garbage.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. Fuck them. And if you think they're good, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yep. You're wrong. And uninstall.
Exactly.
All right. You want to take bomber mechs?
I actually think you should take this one because bomber mechs, I'm just not qualified to talk on the squad.
That is fine. This is, in my opinion, bomber mechs is the strongest team in the game.
Ooh.
I think that bomber mechs. I'm gonna pull them up on screen to talk about this. Bomber mechs has the strongest ability in the game. I almost think I think it's broken. I think that force swap is too powerful. The ability on the exchange mech to pick two targets and make them change positions is like I talked earlier. I want one or sometimes two influenced attacks. This is like usually 2 and sometimes 3 attacks influenced for one action out of the box. This thing is crazy.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm glad you said S because that's like I felt like it should probably be like definitely an S tier squad, but I just it's the final squad that I unlocked, and I've only done a few runs with them, and they've been very hard to they're not a squad that instantly clicked with me, but it's like I could see the potential. And like you said, it's like there's this potential to get like 3-for-1s quite often, which is just amazing, right?
Yeah, no, I like it. This team is so good, but I think that they're the right kind of strong. I don't think that they're broken. It takes a lot of like understanding to really make them start to work because all of their abilities are clunky. The Pierce mech is weird, like it's very strange. The exchange mech is strong, but it is now that I'm looking at it, I'm gonna click through some of the other teams here. It's a 3 mobility, no flying science mech, which is like I think that's unprecedented. For a science mech? It is. It's the only science mech like this that we've seen so far.
I think is the Rusting Hulks that way?
No, it's 4 actually.
Oh, it has 4. Okay.
The only team that has worse mobility than this team is Blitzkrieg.
Oh.
Blitzkrieg is all 3, all grounded. But yeah, no. I think that this team is very reactor core hungry. I also think that this team gets a unique pilot asterisk. There's one pilot that does extremely, extremely well in this team that I don't think does super well anywhere else, and that's Silica, I think is his name. How do you say it? Yeah,
is that the one that you bomb it in anywhere on the map?
No, that's Ghana. Ghana is just like, he's generally very good. Silica is, this mech can act twice if it doesn't move.
Oh, right.
He is, because the bombling mech, once you get 5 reactor cores, you get 4 bombs per turn out of the bombling mech, which ends up being like too many.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gameplay for this team is like, you get to put bomblings down and then swap enemies with the bomblings. You get to put like 4 bomblings down. You can block like up to 5 spawns with 1 mech in the perfect circumstance, which is crazy because the bomblings can go block spawns. The Pierce mech is clunky, but it can also shoot through buildings, which is really strong. Yeah, no, I think that this team is extremely strong, but it takes a lot of work.
You know, my thoughts on it are, it's similar to the, what do you call it, the Frozen Eye in Slay the Spire.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yes, this is really good, but now my run just tripled in time.
Yeah. In one of my earlier episodes, I believe it's titled The Longest Turn Ever or something like that. I took like 20 or 25 minutes on a turn with this team, just finding the right play.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
that sounds quick, actually. It's like... Are you speed run there?
yeah, speed run that episode. Hour and 15 minutes for one island. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this team, I think they really come online in the second island. If you can get, because the problem is that Silica needs 2 cores for his effect, but
Right.
yeah, no, I think it's like I think they're very strong. I think that they are the strongest team for sure. The exchange mech is like force swap is borderline bannable. I feel it's too good. It's like it's the sort of weapon that I see in a run that isn't bomber mechs, and I go, do I really want to play this? Like it feels kind of unfair.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's kind of like the flame. It's similar to like the flame mech science, but even better.
yeah, it absolutely. The only downside is it has bad mobility, right? This team is very core hungry, but if you get a good start, you just go crazy.
Yeah.
All right. I have nothing else to say about this team.
Yeah, me neither. I need to run them more.
That puts us on. You can take this team Arachnophiles.
Arachnophiles. Okay, this one has a special place in my heart because it was my first unfair victory.
Okay.
And it was also the one I think that I unlocked Kai with, which just opened up. And on that note, I think it's very Kai hungry, this squad. Yeah. I don't know that they're that good, to be honest. They're not bad. Like, I would definitely rather... they're not a squad I dread to play, but I think they have a mobility problem. It always is weird to me when I look at the science mech and that it can't fly. It has a freaking propeller on its head. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that the artillery... It's weird because there's not many mechs in the game that do this, but the artillery mech to me starts off strong and actually gets weaker as the run goes on. Because if you put Kai on her, she can at least kill a Scion guaranteed, and that's really strong on Island 1. So I think with Kai, they're a pretty good Island 1 squad, which makes me want to say B or C, just based on the fact that their Island 1 is okay. But I don't think that the science mech is particularly great. It's not the worst one. Like, I would still rather probably have it than like a Rusting Hulk's science one. Yeah, I guess the Brute's good. They feel okay to me, but they don't feel amazing to me. It's really nice to basically get, like, it all comes down to if you can get a value out of your science mech, which is often hard to do, and if you can actually get your sleigh with the artillery, because then you get an extra mech on the map essentially. And I rarely use the spider to actually hit something. I find it just really a lot more useful to either block a spawn or just like chunk block a hit into a grid or something.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Yeah, I think the big point that I would want to echo is that the Arachnoid Injector, which is the Spiderling spawning guy, that thing gets a lot worse as the run goes on and basically needs Kai. Because it caps out at 3 damage, which when you're in a final island of all 4, 5, 6 health enemies, it becomes much harder.
Right. It basically kind of gets to that point we talked about with the Hazard mechs, where you often would basically have to focus 2 entire shots on a single Vec to actually get the value out of it.
Yeah, now the upside of that, of course, is when you get the value, you kind of get your turn back because you get the Arachnoid.
Right.
But I find, too, that the Brute, which is the guy who shoots that ricocheting shot, he can often knock an enemy down 1 or 2 HP and also stop another attack, and then the Arachnoid gets to come in and do its thing. Right. I think that the science mech is like it's the big weakness in the team, but it's mostly only a weakness because it's 2 HP. Because when it if it does like a 3 slide into a wall, like it does a straight line of enemies into a wall, it ends up doing like 2 damage when it moves everything, which can end up being pretty good. But it also kills itself, so
true.
Yeah. No, I think that this thing is okay.
Yeah, if it could. It's tough because it's like it could be pretty good at blocking spawns too, but it's like without a health upgrade, you've now put yourself on a timer that you basically have to repair, or else you're always in danger.
Yeah, and it gets like shield self, and you can give it HP, but ultimately your early cores are going to the Arachnoid Injector to get that thing up and running as fast as
Right.
possible.
Right.
Also, God, I feel like the bulk mech has one of the worst upgrades in the game in Ally Immune on the ricocheting rocket.
I don't think I've ever used that one.
This thing is so awful.
Yeah, like when are you ever shooting your own guy?
And even
It
if you
doesn't
are,
make
it's
any
like,
sense.
oh man, he's gonna take one here. I guess the
Yeah.
slime mech, the science mech will die for that, but
True. True.
I gotta figure out where am I putting these guys. I'm putting them in B.
Yeah, I think B is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that these guys are like, they're fine. I think they're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take the No, what are these guys called? The Mist Eaters. These are the Mist Eaters.
Mm.
So the only question here is, do I want to not put them in S tier because I want to put only one unit in S tier? No,
I
they
feel
can
like
go S tier.
Yeah, I feel like they're S deserving.
Yeah, they're worth it. This team's really good. I'm going to put them in S tier, and then I'm going to pull them up on screen real quick here. Here they are. So the biggest thing that I want to say about this team is that they, like, this is the nanofilter, which lets you absorb the smoke, the mending. This effect is so unbelievable because it turns smoke, which is a like it's a two-way process of getting smoked, right? If you get smoked or if the enemies get smoked, you both lose your turn. It turns smoke into a pure benefit for you, which is so unbelievably strong to start out with. Like that effect is really, really good because you get to play smoke more as I stop the enemy and I also get a benefit if I need to move on that tile 2 turns from now. On top of that, the control mech, it's definitely up there in the top 3 science mechs. Being able to move enemies is so strong. The dog mech, also very good to smoke, and you get more smoke on it. The plane is kind of whatever, but it puts smoke down, and smoke is good for this team. So,
yeah, I mean, and you got 2 flying units. I don't even know how many squads in the game start with 2 flying units. It's wild.
Wait, what? This is 2 flying units with 4 mobility? Holy
4
moly.
mobility. It's wild, yeah. And like you said, the fact that smoke is a benefit for you, a big benefit too, is pretty wild and kind of similar to Rusting Hulks. Any map that has a mosquito is just a free island, in my opinion. It's so easy for you to deal with it. It's like, oh, you smoked me? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Thanks for the heal. I'll move anywhere and shoot anywhere I want now.
Yep. It's like it just turns the mosquitoes into wasting their turns completely.
And honestly, for me, it was this and Frozen that would have my competing for like best squad in the game. I think Bomber will get there eventually if I just get some more experience with them. But it's just wild how, like, unlike the big advantage they have over Frozen is I think all 3 units are amazing. There's no brute. There's no Frozen brute in this squad.
Yeah,
all of them are just really good. Hell, maybe I'll just say maybe I'll let them just honorarily take over Frozen as my top one, just as I say that out loud, because they don't have the problem of having a useless mech.
Yeah, no, they are very, very good. What did I want to say? Oh, I think that this team, we haven't really talked about the environmental effects of things. There's little environmental things to consider, like, hey, flame behemoths get a slight benefit in the archive where there's more fires, and they also get a benefit because they one-shot ice with fire. Those are things that are like fine, but honestly not worth considering. This team has like a very strong consideration because they get to go really, really well into RST, where the desert is. And
right. Yeah, that map is just easy mode for them.
Yeah, because there's so much smoke. So you get a very firm, strong first island. And RST is already a strong first island because of the Terraformer mission. So unless you're against some horrific enemy lineup on RST, you get to have a really, really strong first island with this team, which is nice. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about them.
Yeah, it never feels like a run is hard when you have Mist Eaters.
Yeah, I think they're a standout team for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, it seems to work out just right for you, huh?
Is that the heat stinkers?
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
I hate this squad. I hate this squad so much. um, I mean, where do I even begin? They have, to me, the three worst mechs collectively in this one squad. I hate all of them. I think the science mech is my vote for worst mech in the game.
Ooh.
It has a measly, it has 2 health, it has no movement, it doesn't fly, it has a measly 2 range, it puts fire down, it pushes just one direction. The brute doesn't even get push at the start. Like, what?
Yeah.
And I guess the prime is the one that maybe has potential to not suck, but I've never seen it. I just, every time I use this prime, it's similar to the elite mech. I wish it had building immune. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many turns where I want to shoot through my grid to actually get a really good push, and I end up having to do it anyway because there's nothing else to do with this squad. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And people seem to really like the squad, but for me, I can't give them anything more than an F. I'd almost open up an entire new tier for them. That's how much I hate this squad.
Damn. Let me see. So when I first started playing Unfair, I started on a save file that I had coins on, and I went, oh, you know what team sounds fun? Let me try this Heat Sinkers team. I got slaughtered. I got fucking annihilated by this team. I went into the first look video I did, and I was like, yeah, guys, I think that Unfair mode is like actually unbelievably impossible. And then I played with a different team, and I went, oh, never mind. Apparently, it's actually fine. Because like I didn't make it out of first island when I started playing this game because of heat sinkers.
Oh, they have by far the worst first island, I think.
It is pretty bad. Yeah, I'll put them in F. It's fine. I think that I've come around a little bit on them, but let me pull up the thing here. I had a good run with them. The thing that I think is weird is that like the number one thing that the number one thing I don't like about this team is that the thermal discharger does damage. That's the brute's weapon that pushes in the line. This weapon does damage on the line that it shoots. If it did damage on the like actual push, I think it would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes I protect buildings with this. As it is, it's just kind of clunky on a lot of maps to use.
Right.
Yeah, the criminal on this team, the absolute criminal on this team is the brute mech, though. This thing is... Because the problem is that it does 1 damage and doesn't push. So in a lot of cases on the first island, this isn't going to help you. This is not going to do it. It's going to be 0 to 0.5 on a turn, which is bad. Now, I will give them... like if you give it boost, it does 2 in 2 directions, which can do enough to make a difference sometimes. But and like when you get the push, I think it's okay. I don't know. The thing that really strikes me about this team, though, other than the dispersal max damage being weird, is that they eat the fire when they walk on it.
Right.
I guess it's like the smoke absorption thing, but I don't know, man.
Well, it's also annoying because it's like the science mech without any upgrades. Which, by the way, to me, the science mech starting range and the upgraded range are just a joke to me. It's like, how does this unit... It should at least be a 3, I feel, defaultly. And then maybe I like it better. But it's like, it's the only thing that even puts fire down at the start. So you get
you're right.
a max of 2 flame tiles.
God.
Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
But I will give them this. See, I'm not all, clouded. My vision isn't completely clouded by my hatred of them. I'll give them this. I'll give them a positive. If you happen to get out of the first island, they're okay.
Yeah.
Like, I still think everything's like overcosted on their upgrades, but if you do happen to get them upgraded, technically they're a squad that doesn't need secondary stuff, and they can be okay. But it costs so much to upgrade them, and the upgrades, it's like the first thing you have to get, I think, is the push on the the brute mech. Like that
Yeah.
makes that unit okay. I just hate this squad.
Yeah, I think the push, like they do have some good upgrades. The extra range on the push away mech on the prime is pretty good. I think that my biggest feeling about this team is they're extremely island enemy makeup dependent.
Right.
This team, I think that my number one feeling about this team is you have to go to an island with Mantis because Mantis have 1 HP, or they're the Leapers.
Right.
Yeah, that means that the Quickfire gets to kill an enemy, which influences that enemy's attack, and then sometimes also set up another enemy to die, which makes it much cleaner. But
that's a good point.
yeah, also this team gets annihilated by the fire and the regen scions. It's brutal. Also the armor scion, right? Because then your Quickfire mech does zeros. Oof. That's awful.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like they're to me they're a squad that half-asses both of the spectrum of like, am I a damage squad? Am I a positional manipulation squad? Some might maybe the lovers of heat stinkers say that they're the jack of all trades, master of none of those. I just say they suck completely at both of those things. They don't deal a whole lot of damage, and their positional manipulation is very wonky and awkward to pull off.
Yeah. I think that this is a team that I might come around on a little more as I play them more, but yeah, I think that they struggle a little bit. They struggle on First Island, and like we've been talking about, it's not very worth it to evaluate Fourth Island and Third Island power, because you're basically just evaluating how much base HP and movement does the mech have, and can it fly at that point.
Yeah, I have a freeze ray and a move all the units in one direction at that point.
Yeah. Oh wow. Suddenly when I picked up the swap two enemies, this team popped off. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing that's worth mentioning is that the heat engine's effect is free, so you can swap it to any of the other mechs to give the science mech a little more power. But usually it does stop an enemy by pushing them away, which is good. But yeah, I think the brute mech is just, oh god, what a nightmare. I don't know. They're probably a little better than F, but we're making polarizing opinions here.
Exactly. Yeah, there's enough people that tell me heat sinkers are good that they're probably good, and I'm probably just bad. I'm probably just bad.
Yeah, but also there's probably someone who will stand up for every team in the game. So
True.
To make everyone happy, you just put everything in A tier and go, yeah, it's good, but has some downsides. But
yeah, heat sinkers, they're great.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Final. I'm not going to talk about the Secret Squad. You're welcome to if you want to, but I haven't played them on Unfair, so I have no opinion on them. So final one for me is Cataclysm. This is the hardest team I think I have to evaluate because I love this team. If it's not Blitzkrieg, it's this for my favorite team in the game, but I think that they have a little bit of trouble. I'm going to put them in B tier. I'm going to give them the B tier. I think that if Heat Sinkers is a team that is very island dependent, this team is even more island dependent on making sure that you go to a good army or enemy composition. First of all, I feel like Kai in the drill mech is almost necessary because the drill mech gets up to 4 damage with a Kai boost, which is very good.
Right.
I think that more than anything else, the most important thing to talk about with this team is you have to go to an island that doesn't have more than 1 flying enemy, preferably 0. But flying enemies crush this team.
I think it's bullcrap that if you throw a flying enemy into a hole, they don't die. Because hear me out on the physics of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I throw a flying enemy into a cracked tile, it has enough force to break the earth open. You're telling me I don't have enough force to just also have that thing fall down the hole?
That's a great point.
Right? I mean, it would... You could maybe argue that it recovers midair, but wouldn't it have just the shock, the disorientation of being thrown through the air, probably head first even?
Yeah.
And especially if it hits the ground, it might even be knocked out for a few seconds.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I think this is...
I agree.
Yeah.
Hard agree, definitely.
But I agree. I think they're super fun. B tier sounds very accurate to me, because they, like you said, they are very struggling with knowing what to do with any of the flying units. But I think like the moths in particular, there's not often a clean way to deal with them with this squad.
Yeah.
It's very cool to kill a boss in one shot. Like, that's definitely cool. But
yeah, you throw them in the pit. It's sick.
Right. But super, super fun. They're so satisfying just to like throw a unit into a hole.
Yeah. No, I agree. To your point too, the moths. If you're playing Kai in the drill mech, which I always am, non-alpha first island flying enemies that aren't named moth still die in one hit, and moths become like just a menace. Absolutely a menace.
Yeah, probably the worst moth squad.
Yeah,
which they'd be S otherwise.
Yeah, if it weren't for moths. Yeah, absolutely.
Frickin' moths.
I do everything in my power to never fight moths. I hate that enemy so much. I think it's like the strongest first island enemy to fight against. They're so powerful.
I kept trying to. I was in denial so long of how awful they were. I was like, oh no, they're not so bad. They're fine. And then after just losing so many runs to moths, I'm on board with the hate for them now.
Oh, God, the only enemy I hate more is spiders, but not an enemy tier list yet.
True. Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, save that for the next video.
Yeah.
I do think that the ranged mech in this team is really awkward, because if there's an enemy standing on a cracked tile and this thing shoots at them, they will break the tile, but the enemy won't fall because they get pushed off. And I get that the idea is that you're supposed to push an enemy into a cracked tile while destroying it, but usually that just doesn't happen.
Right.
But
yeah, it's like I really like the artillery. Even beyond it is weird though, because kind of like you said, it's the one that synergizes the least, I feel, with the squad. Like the science and Prime are peas in a pod. They're just like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen over there or whatever. It's like they're setting each up for the 3 points. But the artillery mech, it is like pretty good at outputting damage, and there are some interesting, every now and then, if you can line like 3 or 4 Vex up, it does a stupid amount of damage with all the pushing as well. But
yeah, true.
Yeah, like you said, it can be kind of awkward to actually utilize it for putting something into a hole or not getting your own crap put into a hole. Like, it's just kind of awkward. And I will also say this. Similar to Arachnophiles, I think that the science mech actually starts to lose its value in the later islands.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially, so on the later islands, you're guaranteed to start fighting enemies that fly, which is rough.
Right.
And on top of that, the damage caps out at 4 if you're playing it with Kai, so it's not so bad, but it can't outright kill 5 or 6 HP enemies, which does become a problem on higher island numbers.
Absolutely.
But the upside of this is that you get to, if you're playing Kai, you're 1 reactor core away from this doing 3, which is so good at the start. And it does at least flip enemies when it's attacking them on later islands, which does do something at least. But
Right.
Yeah, I think this team does start to struggle on the later islands, which is why it gets a B. You need to hit good weapons, which is still a consideration, even though we were saying, like, well, later islands aren't super worth considering. You can miss a bunch, and this team can fall off.
Yeah, I think the teams that are the most self-sufficient are the ones that kind of get to go in S tier, because like Mist Eaters doesn't need any extra weapons, right?
Yeah, no, they're good from the get-go.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that I want to mention. This is not a gameplay related thing. However, I've been looking at all of these units and all of these weapons, and for some reason, I guess it's not just Cataclysm, but the Tri-Rocket mech, its weapons are organized with the upgrade on the Tri-Rocket to be the 3 reactor core one first, and then the 1 reactor core underneath it, which is like extremely out of place to put the more reactor core one higher in the list.
Right.
And I don't like that. But they also do it on Arachnophiles too, for some reason. Anyway.
All right, it's a D tier now.
Yep, D tier. That's it.
That's
They're out.
2 instant tier drops. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. What a literally unplayable.
Yeah, literally.
All right. Would you like to talk a little bit about the Secret Squad?
I would. You know why?
Go
Because
ahead.
if people keep getting to tell me that the Heat Sinkers and the Flame Behemoths are good, I get to tell everyone that the Secret Squad is better.
Okay.
They get C tier. They get a C tier from me.
All right.
Everybody always tells me the Secret Squad is just a joke. They're so bad. But why? We have a flying mech. It has a lot of movement. It can push stuff. We have a brute that doesn't hurt itself and can charge and push stuff. We have a artillery that is at least starting as good as any of the other good artillery in the game. And then they all have good upgrades. The artillery has an AoE upgrade that has an even bigger spread than the steel judoka. It has a brute that can smoke behind. We all know that smoke is great. And for one reactor, by the way, one reactor, all these things. I think the artillery one is more, but we'll ignore that fact. And the Hornet, if you need damage, it's got you covered. Easy damage upgrades, easy range upgrades. What's not to love? C tier.
It is like I haven't played this team at all, and I haven't looked at them in like 4 years because I haven't unlocked them on the save file I've been playing on. It is extremely weird to me that this team has like the most non-descriptive upgrades I've ever read in my life. This Hornet's upgrade is range and damage.
It's a 2-in-1.
Yeah, wow. What does this mean? I guess it's +1 range, +1 damage, but still.
It basically turns it into the Alpha Hornet.
Oh,
but it's better because you can push a unit too.
I see. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this team, I don't see this team. I guess you lose the pilot benefit is what people are going to complain about, but
There's that, and then there's also every single secondary that you want to equip will cost an extra reactor since right. And I'll admit that honestly is the only thing that keeps it out of like A tier for me. Because to me, it's a well-balanced squad. There's no weak point. There's no incredibly strong point, but I would gladly take this squad over Heat Stinkers any day of the week.
It is interesting to note that the Beetle's attack is just the Riftwalker's attack. The Riftwalker's artillery attack, they're like, it's 1-to-1, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. It starts out 1-to-1. But to me, it upgrades to a better unit because it can actually get 2 of those shots essentially consecutively. Yeah.
Okay. I think the C tier sounds fine. I get the downside, but I don't have an opinion yet because I haven't played them. I'll be sure to unlock them soon.
I have like a special soft spot for this squad because nobody loves them, and they need some love.
That's fair. You gotta root for the underdog.
Right.
I'll become a Heat Sinkers fan after this.
Yeah. Heat Sinkers S tier.
All right, I think that's all of it, right?
Yeah. Custom squad, random squad, all F tier clearly.
Yeah, I mean, oh boy, tell me more about how you played. I played the 3 ice mech or the 3 artillery ice.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's you get network shielding and then the run just ends.
Yep. That was my first 40k.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.
It's been a pleasure. If you want to plug again, I'll have links in your description or in the description as well. If you have anything specific you want to talk about, though.
No plugs at the moment.
Right.
Oh, I tell you what, I played the Fallout mod that you got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it drove me to insanity.
Yeah, it's a little rough, I think, at times. But yeah. Well, that does it for us. We'll probably, I don't know if we'll do another one like super soon. Weapons and pilots, maybe, but definitely there'll be at least one more tier list of when I finish all the unfair clears, final feelings. But
I feel like we at least have to do the enemy.
Yeah,
tier
the
list.
enemy tier list. Yeah, talk about how much I hate moths and spiders. What a nightmare. All right, well, Gabriel, thank you for joining me,
Yeah, thanks, Voix.
and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.